Welcome back to the Friday Show, presented by the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association. Their stallion auction is going on right now. We'll tell you more about it coming up. I'm Scott Jagow, along with Joe Nevills, our bloodstock editor, who is joining us from Keeneland, where the sale is still going on. Joe, how are things going this week?
Well, so far so good. It's going to be tough to keep pace with last year's sale just because the 2019 edition featured the $5 million purchase of Eclipse Award winner Abel Tasman, which was a record for the Keeneland January sale. But if you remove that $5 million from the equation, things are tracking along pretty steadily from last year.
All right, well, let's jump into the Eclipse Awards. The ceremony is next week at Gulfstream Park, of course, along with the Pegasus World Cup. We're just going to go through some of the categories and share our thoughts about who we like, who we voted for, and that kind of thing. So let's start with 2-year-old Colt, which is a pretty contentious category just because a 45-1 long shot won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile and stormed the court. And we've had these years before where somebody jumps up and wins that race and the other competitors just don't have the resume to knock them off.
Yeah, and this is very much one of those years, and that's the reason why I put Storm the Court on top. Without a true division leader elsewhere, I tend to default to who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in the 2-year-old divisions, and that was Storm the Court this year. And he did enough with the rest of his form during the year that, he was great at stakes place elsewhere before the Breeders' Cup, that it was enough that I felt good putting him on top.
I agree. I mean, if Tiz the Law had come on and won the Kentucky Jockey Club race, then he probably would have won it, but I think we both agree there. 2-year-old filly, who do you have?
Well, I put British Idiom on top. British Idiom beat every horse that was put in front of her, traveled, won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile filly. She did everything you could ask for. I think that's a slam dunk for me, but I have seen some groundswell for Bast. It will be interesting if British Idiom does win and Bast doesn't. You don't see a whole lot of 2-year-olds win 3 Grade 1 races in a year and not go home with the trophy, but that could very well happen with Bast here.
But you have that juvenile fillies race where it's just British Idiom on top, so it's hard to go against her.
Exactly.
3-year-old Colt is definitely interesting. We've had a poll this week about who should win, and actually Code of Honor has come out on top, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on there with the voting in terms of who is making their votes known. It's close, but Maximum Security is actually behind, and I don't think that's going to be the reality. I think Maximum Security is going to win. Myself, I had a tough time with this category. I almost abstained because I didn't like it that much. I mean, Maximum Security was almost by default. The last time I saw him on the racetrack, he was beating older horses. So that's a key thing in his category. Code of Honor was running against older horses, but not performing at all. And so that, to me, was the difference in making Maximum Security the winner of this category. But I did not like and do not support the way he was campaigned this year. Code of Honor's resume was better in terms of where he went. Travers, Jockey Club Gold Cup, Breeders' Cup Classic. He definitely topped him there. And then there's your vote, which is for Omaha Beach.
Omaha Beach, that's true. This is a race that I thought was very close. As you said, nobody ran a perfect campaign this year in the 3-year-old male division. So for me, especially after Code of Honor didn't really get the job done in the Breeders' Cup, it was between Maximum Security and Omaha Beach. And we're talking about severe hair splitting here, and the hair that I decided to split here was overall strength of schedule, and that's why I put Omaha Beach on top. Compared to Maximum Security, Omaha Beach beat more individual graded stakes winners during his 2019 campaign and beat more individual Grade 1 winners, and he did it with one fewer start, so you'd have to think that over the span of a admittedly shorter campaign, he did more to beat more.
Yeah, I hear your argument there. I just don't buy it. I don't think it's gonna hold water with most of the voters. So I think Maximum Security is going to end up winning the category. All right, 3-year-old filly. I think it's a slam dunk. Kofefe is going to win that for sure. But older dirt male is a little bit contentious because you have Vino Rosso, Matoli, and McKenzie, who had a really fabulous season, except he just didn't win that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, I ended up putting Matoli on top here. He was consistent throughout the year. He beat the best in the male sprinter division. And until we get to a point where we're specifically nailing down that the older male award is for a two-turn horse and not a sprinter. For me, he qualifies for that. He was nigh unbeatable throughout the year. He won his Breeders' Cup race, and he just did everything that I needed to see him do.
Yeah, I disagree with you. I disagree about Mitole having a sensational season. I just disagree about the way I voted for it. I went with Vino Rosso, who, won the Jockey Club Gold Cup on the track, and then, of course, he got disqualified, but it was really close. So that was still a good performance. I saw that, so that counted for me. And then he wins the Breeders' Cup Classic. And there is a sprinter category, and Mitole is a slam dunk to win that. I just felt Vino Rosso deserved some attention as well for his performance. But again, we have this older male category on dirt, which has not been that strong in recent memory.
Yeah, I think we can agree that if it were still open to both dirt and turf horses, the older male and female divisions, Bricks and Mortar wins this one in a walk.
Sure. Older dirt female is a slam dunk, Midnight Bassu. I know Blue Prize won the distaff over her, but coming into that race, Bassu was a contender, a serious contender for Horse of the Year. So I'd be surprised if she doesn't still win that category, even though Blue Prize topped her in the race.
I'm with you on this one. Honestly, I'm a little offended that Midnight Bassu wasn't a finalist for Horse of the Year, because until the last few jumps of the Breeders' Cup Distaff, she was unbeatable this year. And the fact that she still ran a good second and couldn't get that third spot really bothered me.
Yeah, we both agree that Mitole is going to win male sprinter, although I gave a nod in second to World of Trouble, who ran on the turf, and we don't have a turf sprint category, so I felt like he should get some love too because of his performances. Female sprinter, I went with Kofefe. You too?
Me too. This was one that could have gone in a lot of different directions, but I feel like Kofefe had the most cohesive campaign throughout the entire year. She won the big one at the end, and she did it as a 3-year-old beating older, so that's pretty impressive in its own right. Behind her, I ended up putting Come Dancing and Spice Perfection. I think Come Dancing was a finalist as well. I don't think Spice Perfection got there, but it's below that. It's below Kofefe. I thought it was a very competitive group of also-rans.
Yeah. Male turf horse, Bricks and Mortar, duh. I don't think there's any argument there. Female turf horse, though, this was a very difficult category to decide. I went with Uni because I last saw her beating males in the Breeders' Cup Mile. But before that, Got Stormy had beaten her at Saratoga, and Sister Charlie, had she won her Breeders' Cup race, she would have finished the season undefeated.
Yeah, this was easily the deepest division of all the equine categories this year. I mean, we have 3 very good horses that ran excellent campaigns, and we still have some other ones that didn't even make the finalist list that could have very well won the trophy in other years. We're talking about horses like Basilica, who was a multiple Grade 1 winner and nearly won her Breeders' Cup race. Rushing Fall had a very good campaign and could have easily made a finalist list any other year but this one. But the fillies were just so strong this year, and part of the reason why Bricks and Mortar is such a slam dunk in his division is because the fillies won so many of the open races. They sunk an entire other category because they were so strong.
Well, Horse of the Year, I voted for Bricks and Mortar. He was unbeaten, and the last time I saw him, he was coming from behind in his final race of the year to win the Breeders' Cup Turf, and he had to, get up in dramatic fashion to win it. That slammed the door shut for me on Horse of the Year.
Yeah, he was undefeated this year. He won all the races that he needed to. He beat all the horses that he needed to, won the Breeders' Cup. There's nothing more you can ask of a horse like that. He was my Horse of the Year easily.
A couple of the categories for people are interesting. Trainer, I think Chad Brown is going to run away with that. Although heading into the latter part of the year, I was thinking Steve Asmussen might pull it out. But he just has so many more starts, like 2 times more plus starts than Chad Brown, and Chad Brown has all the numbers by a long shot.
Yeah, I do the American Graded Stakes standings on the website, and I just watched Chad Brown compile graded wins, and he had such a wide margin over everyone else that it would be hard to ignore that.
And the jockey category, I actually went a little bit different direction. I think Irad Ortiz is going to win. He's kind of the guy of the moment in the last couple of years. That used to be Javier Castellano, and I actually voted for Castellano this year because I looked at their records side by side, and Castellano had more graded wins, more grade 1 wins, and 500 fewer starts. So it was close for me, but I went with Javier.
Yeah, Javier was my number 2 on my ballot. I ended up putting Irad Ortiz on top. Irad was a force. He continues to be a force of nature in the saddle. He won 4 Breeders' Cup races this year, which I know the Breeders' Cup shouldn't be the be-all, end-all for something like this, but winning that many means something to me. And Irad's a first-call rider for Chad Brown, who I think is going to walk away with a trainer award that night. And to be such an integral part of someone else's Eclipse Award, I think needs to be taken notice of. So he was my number 1 choice, but I certainly understand the people who voted for Javi in that spot.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close, but I think Irad will probably end up winning that category. We have a poll about one of the other categories we talked about, older dirt male. Who do you think will win the Eclipse Award for that one? Vino Rosso, Matoli, McKenzie, share your thoughts at PaulickReport.com. Well, I want to give you a tip of the cap also for one more Eclipse category, and that is feature writing. You were the winner. Congratulations. Tell us a little bit about the story that you wrote.
Well, thank you very much. The story is called Biting the Dust, A Long Goodbye to Mount Pleasant Meadows, and it's just sort of an ode to my home track, Mount Pleasant Meadows in central Michigan. It was a 4-furlong mixed breed bull ring, and it's where I grew up and learned the sport. And the story itself focuses on some of the notable people at the track who really stayed there when the circuit moved on, and how they were affected by the track's closure, how they were able to move on themselves, if at all, and then looking at my own experiences with the track and how the closure affected me and how I was attempting to move on myself. And it's really exciting to have a very personal story get recognized like this.
Well deserved. It was a great piece. I'll put a link to it in our post here for the Friday show. Well, the Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association's stallion auction, the 10th annual, is going on right now. There are 75 stallions from 5 different states. Thoroughbred.com is where you go to put in bids, and it's going all the way up till almost midnight, a tick before midnight on Saturday. And Joe, you're very well aware of what's on offer here.
Oh yeah, we've got something for breeders in both the Mid-Atlantic region and nationally. For Pennsylvania sires, we have some youngsters like Aeroforce, Boisterous, Dolphus, who is a half to Rachel Alexandra, Peace and Justice, Uptown Charlie Brown, who's very proven. Then we've got some big name ones like Flashback, the sire of British Idiom, who we were talking about earlier, Poseidon's Warrior, who's the sire of Firenze Fire, and Smarty Jones. Everybody loves Smarty Jones.
Yeah.
Then in the Kentucky region, we have Accelerate, Astern, Dialed In, Honor Code, Golden Sense, Midshipman, Mineshaft, Tapiture. For any level, take a look at it.
Yeah, this has become a really big deal. The Pennsylvania Horse Breeders Association's stallion auction at thoroughbred.com. That is going to do it for this edition of the Friday Show. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.